Napoli fans around the world, welcome to Napoli Talk. Today, we are previewing the Frankfurt Napoli game, Eintracht Frankfurt Napoli game, with a very special guest because we have an Eintracht Frankfurt fan today to preview this game for us. So, Alex, thanks for coming on to the show. Introduce yourself to the Napoli fans.
Hi, Domenico. Great pleasure. Happy to be here today. So, as you said, Eintracht Frankfurt fan. It's not the typical story. So that my dad took me to the stadium when I was a small boy to Frankfurt, but I only moved here to Frankfurt a little bit later when I was around 18, 19 years old. But I've been living here for 15 years now, and grew together with the city and the club. So while having supported another club before, I mean, well, now a member with Frankfurt, and full on Eintracht fan.
So in the past 15 years, a lot has happened with the club, but we're not gonna go all the way back to that. We're just gonna look at maybe the last 2 or 3 seasons to figure out how did we get to this point where we are today with the team. So essentially, let's start with the 2021 season, the very end of that, where you guys finish fifth with 60 points, 1 point behind Wolfsburg. And for the next season, you take on the manager Glasner, and he came from Wolfsburg. And what was your initial thoughts with this new manager that came in?
Um, Very mixed feelings. Very mixed feelings because we were super happy with the coach that we had before, Adi Hütter,
Hmm.
who we had great success with ever since he took over from Niko Kovac before, who won the cup together with us.
Yeah.
So we were quite used to um, our coaches who had great seasons with us moving on to bigger challenges,
Mhm.
same as Hütter then did, moving on to Gladbach. But we knew that Glasner um, is a very profiled coach. He had great success before coming in, and we always rely on the club as a total, right? So the coach is only one puzzle piece, but we're also used to players leaving us after great seasons. So we always take what we have at the beginning of a season and then make the best out of it. I think that's the approach we always take year after year here in Frankfurt.
Yeah, it's interesting how you guys have always had such nice coaches in the past, and I think he's proven himself over the last 2 seasons to be also at a very top level. But last season in the league, you guys went from finishing on 60 points the year before to 42 points last season, 11th. I know something else happened that season, but let's focus on the Bundesliga for a little bit. Why do you think that is? Do you really think it's because you put all your attention on the Europa League, or did something not quite click in the Bundesliga last season?
That's a phenomenon that's been around for centuries, I would say, not centuries, but decades in Frankfurt. So already in the 70s or 80s, Eintracht Frankfurt nickname for the fans was the Diva. And I think I don't have to explain to you Italians what a diva is. But we always had great single matches with breakout performances against top teams, which were then followed by very average or poor performances against average teams or from the lower half of the table.
Yeah.
And that's something that keeps happening. The level on which we perform gets higher, but we always have these breakout performances to the bottom or up. And in the past season, on the big stage, on the big European stage, we were able to bring out our best performances. And I think that's also due to the fact that Frankfurt, in comparison to other big clubs like Leipzig, Dortmund, or Bayern, obviously doesn't have the budget to have the depth in the
Mhm.
whole team roster. So we can't rotate half of the squad or the entire squad from Bundesliga weekends to the matches in the Europa League. So I think it also had a little bit to do with that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think the euphoria really took over for the Europa League, and maybe one or the other player wasn't too focused
Yeah.
in the weekends against the minor teams, of course.
And it's interesting you say that. Not only did you guys have great performances, but you guys won it being unbeaten in the whole tournament, which is an incredible achievement for any team, let alone a team that maybe, wasn't considered the top 3 or 4 favorites when the competition started or when we got to the last round of matches, especially because you guys played some really good teams. Real Betis last year was having a great season. Barcelona, which was a club that eliminated us in the previous round. So Barcelona beat us and then played against you guys. So, some very good teams that you guys
Mhm.
beat. Possibly Barcelona was your toughest team, or do you think that later on in the tournament you also had, or maybe Betis? Like, which one was your toughest game in that Europa League campaign?
Um, yeah, so the Barcelona match will always be a very special one, especially the one that we had at Barcelona. You probably all saw the pictures bringing in 30,000 Eintracht
The
supporters
fans.
to Camp
Yeah,
Nou and taking it over,
yeah,
making a home game out of it, right? So, um, but I think the next match or the next round against West Ham United in the semis was then the hardest, right? So having
mm,
a strong English team, knowing what was coming for them, because I think Barcelona we took by surprise a little bit. They
yeah,
they maybe underestimated Frankfurt, what we brought in, but we were sure that that wouldn't happen to West Ham. And so I would think that the matches after Barcelona and the semis were the hardest.
yeah. And then obviously we get to the final, and Rangers was having a great season as well, and a great run in the Europa League, and you guys beat them on penalties. I think a deserved win, and yeah, I was happy to see Frankfurt winning that game. I was supporting them in that one.
Great to
But
hear.
we get to this season, and to be honest, this summer I was a little worried for you guys when I was reading the papers. Kostic leaves to Juventus, and then I hear of 2 names coming in attack. Colomwani from Nantes on a free, and Mario Götze, which I thought had, disappeared from the important stages of football. What did you guys think? Because you had just won the Europa League. Maybe you guys were expecting a higher level quality of players coming in. Obviously, we know that now that who Colomwani is, but I mean, what was the thoughts this summer when you hear these names after winning a major trophy?
Yeah, those are great points because I think they targeted two things that I would say Frankfurt is really great at when it comes to transfers. And the one thing is scouting, bringing in and integrating young players, which you have to do if you don't have the budget to compete for the big shots, right? But another thing that Frankfurt is doing is bringing in players who tried in big clubs, somehow failed, um, and Frankfurt gets them in to give them a second chance.
Hmm.
Or maybe they didn't fail, but it's just that time in the career to take a step back. For example, before we brought in Götze, we also brought in Kevin Prince Boateng, who you might know very well
Yeah,
from AC Milan, right?
yeah.
Um, who's a very tough personality to handle in a team. But in Frankfurt, he was an amazing team player and led us to the cup win. Um, same for Götze, who obviously performed amazingly for Dortmund. Didn't go so well with Bayern. Then shot us to the World Cup in 2014, and then he disappeared, moving to the Netherlands. Right. So nobody really knew what was going on with him. There were talks about mental things, but without a doubt, he was a great football player. And when I heard that Frankfurt is interested in signing him, my first thought was, okay, if that guy will ever get back to his level, then that will happen in Frankfurt
In
because
Frankfurt,
Frankfurt
yeah.
is just the surrounding where these people um, can get back to their top level.
Yeah, I'm surprised at the fact not so much that he's still got the quality because I always felt that he had the quality and it's, quality is they say class is permanent, no?
Mhm.
But I'm surprised at the amount of minutes he's playing every single game. I didn't think his physique was still there. But this season, he's playing pretty much every time.
Yeah.
So that's good to see because at the end of the day, he's a legend, not only of German football, but of international football after scoring a winner in the World Cup. And it's always nice to see a legend, get back to being at, top level. But you've also got some incredible other players in the team, especially I think going up in attack. So we spoke about Colomwani, 10 goals, 12 assists this season. Firstly, I need to ask before we talk about the other players, is he the best player in the Bundesliga right now?
Um, let's just say yes. So he's definitely the hottest guy, right? So everything he touches these days somehow works out.
Mhm.
So he's got to run. Um, it will be on him to prove that he can deliver these performances constantly. If he does, he will be one of the very very big players in Europe. I'm absolutely convinced. We all hope that he will stay for another season in Frankfurt, but I wouldn't be surprised if his story with us ended in summer and he would take a big move, sign a big contract.
Mm.
Which is also something we saw with all the strikers we had in the past 5 years, right? So
Yeah,
we had Rebic, who then moved on to Milan. We had
Milan.
Jovic, who went to Real Madrid and then ended up in Italy as well. We had Sebastian Haller going to England now, back to Dortmund. And I think that also showed him that staying in Frankfurt for one more year might also be the better option than directly chasing the biggest contract out there.
Yes. Yes.
But we'll see. Yeah. But he
Yeah.
definitely is an amazing striker that brings so much more depth into our game because he's so versatile. He's good with the head. He's good on his feet. He's agile, but he's also very robust. You can push him around in the box, so he's an element that we would be very, very, yeah, we would miss him a lot, and he would be
Mhm.
very hard to replace.
I've been looking at some of his goals, and he reminds me a lot of the striker that we have, Victor Osimhen,
Mhm.
because he's that kind of quick player, good with his head, as you said, and also makes some great runs. And I must say, some of the through balls that are being given to him, like from players like Lindstorm, for example, like really, really nice, smooth football that Eintracht Frankfurt is playing. So yeah, Colomwani, definitely. I think he'll stay. Honestly, I think Frankfurt, they'll want some level of consistency at some point, and I think that maybe looking at other players, maybe they're willing to let go of someone like, as we said, like Lindstrom more than Moani, who I think has also got a, a market there for him. And yeah, talking about him, 7 goals and 4 assists. You've got Kamada as well, who knows how to grab a few assists and goals, even though in the past few weeks not as many. So all in all, you guys are kind of in the title race this season with how well your attack is going. But as you said before, Frankfurt is a team that kind of goes up and down a little bit, and you guys lose the other day against Cologne 3-0. If you guys hadn't lost that game, you would have been on 41 points, 2 points behind Bayern in first. So, man, what happened in that game? How do you lose 3-0 against a team that's, what, 14th, 15th in the table when you're in a title run?
Yeah, that just goes back to the diva topic that we had before, right? That's just these slips of attention. Maybe people being tired, not to focus because there are big matches coming up. But yeah, if this consistency would be there or would have been in there, would have been within the club for the past years, we would be at a whole different level. But that's just how it is. That makes it interesting as
Mhm.
well because there are no easy games. I have to admit, we played last night against Bremen,
Yeah.
and that would have been the perfect matchup for another slip as well, right? So right before a big match in the Champions League against a game that just got up last season from the second division. So it wouldn't have been surprising, but we actually delivered a very, very solid performance, 1-2-0, and
Yeah.
were able to save some energies for the match on Tuesday night. So yeah, but then again, these slips, and then I think that goes back to our lineup in the defense,
Mhm.
mainly because we have very young players, very talented players. We have Tuta from Brazil, we have Ndika,
Yeah.
French, and Jakic, who actually last season played more in midfield or actually also as a winger, and now got transformed by our coach into a center back of um, our defense, which we're playing with three center backs.
Mhm.
So um, yeah, and there's a certain level of inexperience within our defense, and that's one of the vulnerabilities if one of these guys doesn't is not on the best performance, which was Ndika in the last weeks. Um, but he's now he now bounced back and is on a better level now.
Yeah.
Then we are vulnerable against
Yeah.
against teams.
Thankfully for you guys, you have a great keeper behind this defense, Kevin Trapp. But what would you say is this? So we know that your strong point is the attack, and you guys can score in all sorts of ways with many different players.
Mhm.
Defense, you talk about inexperience. What exactly would you say is an area where you fear the most? Is it through balls in behind defenders? Is it crosses? Is it just general lapses of concentration? What is the actual biggest weak point that you're most worried about, especially against a team like Napoli that plays some really nice football, also has the ability to cross the ball to Victor Osimhen?
Mm.
What do you fear the most?
Um, so I would say if we are well organized, then we defend cross balls from the wings pretty well in the air. What's tougher is fast breaks and good agile passing through the middle, where you can get us on the wrong foot. So I'd say
Yeah.
if there's a way to go to get through this defense, it would be these two.
Yeah, and I think a few of the goals that were conceded against Colm were on the counter attack. So because of that, talking about now the game that's coming up, do you expect maybe you guys to play a bit more defensively, not try to expose the defense too much, or do you think that you will say, you know what, we're playing at home, let's just go and attack Napoli, and if we leave some spaces in the back, oh well. What do you think will be the approach?
I hope that we don't play too careful, because I think that's just not our style, and we're just not successful in doing that. We need to be in. I think the more hectic and the more speed is in the match, the better
Mhm.
for us, because we also are a team that does not have too much possession. I don't know the stats from last night, but I think we had around 40-45% of possession. So we also are looking for the counter attacks and for counter pressing.
Yeah.
Um, so I hope that we will keep our style even though we're going up against Napoli.
I hope so too. I hope so too. And that's the beauty of, I think, the Champions League, is that you find teams that tend to be a little bit more open than, in our case, the Serie A, where teams are very defensive. In the Champions League, it's a bit more hectic, and I think we like that as well because we've got some fast players, some skillful players. So it's going to be, I think, a very nice game to watch. However, is the Champions League really something that you guys are hoping to, you know, spend a lot of time in this season? Or do you see this as the season to concentrate on the Bundesliga? Because at the end of the day, you're not so far away from first place, and I don't think Bayern is as strong of a team this year as they were in previous years. So could this be your chance to concentrate locally instead? Because as you said, maybe you don't have the team to do both tournaments.
Yeah. So if there's one thing I'm 100% sure of is that we won't save only one bit of energy in the Champions League. We're going to give that competition everything we got, because that's how Frankfurt works. And that's why this big base of supporters is there. Comeback follows on every away game in huge hordes because they can rely on the team leaving it all out on the pitch, regardless of strategies to win the Bundesliga and to place one place higher. Things. So if it might be the wiser choice, but it's definitely not going to happen.
That's good. That's good, man. That's how it should be played. And obviously, the Frankfurt fans are gonna be crazy in the stadium. They are, I think last season they won the award for craziest away fans in a crazy in a good way because having 30,000 people show up to Barcelona is insane. Um, so yeah, I'm excited for just to see that, to actually play in a stadium where the fans are so passionate. That's what you want to see as well. And I think it's going to be a really, really good game. And I think we're getting to the point now where we got to make some predictions. So give me some predictions both for this game coming up and also just in general on who do you think is going to pass the tie.
Um, so for the upcoming game, we talked about it being a high tempo game, agile. So I think it will be high scoring, with both sides scoring. So I'll give it a 3-2 for Frankfurt at home. Um, and then I hope we can save a draw in Napoli and go on to the next round.
Okay, so you're thinking 3-2 and a draw. All right. I also think it will be high scoring. I think Napoli will maybe get a draw in this game and then maybe a 2-2, something like that. And even though we don't tend to concede many goals, but I think you guys have the quality. If there's one team that can score goals, it's you guys. So I think a 2-2, and then taking it back to the Maradona, I think there can only be one team there. I'm not gonna mention the team name. There's gonna be one team that wins, but I'm not gonna say it because if I continue that sentence, they're gonna be very upset with me. So,
Okay, understood.
anyways, Alex, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for your time, and I'm excited for this game. Hope you enjoy it, and hopefully, speak soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Enjoy the match, and to all the Napoli fans coming out to Frankfurt, safe travels. Enjoy the game, enjoy Frankfurt, and yeah, all the best.
All right, guys. Ciao.